Twitch. It's a nice rainy day here in Ohio, but we're ready to go with some streaming today. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 39, and we're going to finish out our little experiment with CQRS and Event Sourcing. And I kind of had a hypothesis that I could maybe accomplish some event sourcing with some of the eventing functionality built into Couchbase. And I think we're off to a good start, but I think at this point, eventing by itself is not going to do the trick. At least not the full event sourcing implementation. So I think we'd still need to write some logic in whatever application to handle that. But we're going to keep going. We're going to prove it all the way out, just to kind of show some of the challenges in event sourcing and how it's something that it sounds complicated. It's not really complicated, but the devil's always in the details and the edge cases. So we're going to get on with it today. The spirit of this channel is so. The only stupid question is when you don't ask. So ask away. Any questions, no matter how silly, how simple, how basic, how off topic you think they are, ask away. Love to chat with you and answer your questions. Probably about software and programming, things like that, but other questions too. I'll be happy to discuss those. Okay, what else? I am a member of Team Live Coders on Twitch, and so let's open up a browser here. Let me close my other browsers, in fact, but I'll bring up the Team Live Coders here. Twitch/team/Live Coders, and you can see the whole list of our team members, 92 strong, and here are the people who are streaming right now. So Developers Garage, Code Rushed, InstaFluff, lots of people streaming right now, and if I'm not mistaken, I thought C# Fritz might be streaming. He might be streaming on the Visual Studio official channel, which is not part of the Live Coders team. But he actually raided on Tuesday, so I was hoping to return the favor. Although I think I did raid him. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So we'll come back to this towards the end of the stream, and we'll find someone else to raid, like Developers Garage. It'd be fun to check out what Ryan's doing. Okay, what else? Oh, and there's a command for this now. It is it Live Coders? Yes. So I type bang Live Coders and get the URL for that in the stream. So you're welcome to check that out. What else is going on? I'm also on this list, the Awesome Developers streaming list, which you can go to by typing in bang awesome dev in the chat room. Get a link to that. And this is just a big text file basically on GitHub, so people can submit pull requests to it. But it's a list of streamers and their names, the links to their site, and well, these are links to further down the page, but links to their site, wherever they're streaming. It doesn't have to be Twitch, doesn't have to be Live Coders team. Lots of people doing lots of different stuff, and you can see all the different options there. And if the list has been updated recently, I like to go through here and see if anyone new is doing stuff around database streaming. Because if you look at my name here, I go to Matt Groves, and we'll jump down to the bottom. I do a lot of databases stuff, a lot of back-end stuff, .NET, C#, ASP.NET, SQL, NoSQL, SQL++, all that kind of stuff. I stream here on Twitch. Here's all the links to my various stuff. But you can find this information for anybody on this list and all the different topics that they are streaming about. So I like to go through and search for data, see if anyone else is doing stuff with data. There's not a lot of people doing database stuff. So when someone new is added to this list, I like to know about it. So, but anyway, you can just go here, do a Control F in your browser, and search for something, a keyword, something you're interested in, and do a search to find someone who's streaming some fun content. And speaking of content, if you want to go to see some of my older episodes, the recordings of those episodes, you can go to bit.ly/GrovesTube. That'll take you to the YouTube page where I export all the episodes. Usually in a timely manner, not always, but I export all the episodes from Twitch over to YouTube, and so you can then subscribe there to get notified of those new recordings. You can hit likes, leave comments, leave your questions and stuff there. I'm happy to, if I see those, I will bring them up on the stream in the future. So ask a question. If you're watching right now on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, all those great things, just so I know you're out there. And if you can't join us on Twitch Live because of the time zones, I understand. So but it's always fun to get in here and do some live interaction. TwitchBot is currently on, and I have recently coded a fun little surprise in there that I'm going to expand on in the future. But let's say Calvin Allen decides to show up and say hi in the chat room. He's going to get a nice little surprise there for the first time. But I can also, if you just type bang current project, you can see a link to what I'm currently working on, which right now is an experiment with event sourcing. So I linked to the Martin Fowler page on event sourcing to give you some background about it. The C# Advent is happening right now. I'll put a link for this in the chat room as well. If you want to sign up, it's not happening yet, but signups are happening right now. So if you go to this URL or to csadvent.christmas, this is the sign up page for the 3rd annual C# Advent. It's basically every day in December, people will sign up to post their blog on that day, and then they will link back to this C# Advent page. So as this Advent goes forward, we're all linking to each other's blogs and all linking back to this main hub. And this usually results in a nice boost in traffic and discussion and conversation and just a month full of great content for C# developers. We'll share it on social media, we'll share it on Reddit, all those kinds of things. And so if you're looking to get into blogging or you want to bring your blog back to life, this is a great place to start, a great time to start. So sign up for this right now. There's a few slots left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's actually only 5 slots left. Someone just before I started left a comment that claimed a stream, and I myself am going to claim the very last spot. So there's only 5 spots left, 5 spots left for you to sign up for the C# Advent. So get in on that. If you're new to C#, you're an old hat, you don't have to write a blog. It could be a video, it could be a podcast, whatever. It could be a comic strip for all I care. As long as it's C# related, some good content to help the C# community. And to sort of promote the developer community. That's the whole point of this C# Advent calendar. And that's CS Advent, a URL, courtesy of the Calvin Allen I just mentioned earlier. So check that out. This is your last day, if you want to win prizes, to go to bit.ly/Couchbase Survey. If you're a Couchbase user, brand new to Couchbase, or have been using it for a while, we want your feedback on it. We're trying to improve the overall developer experience. That's a lot of things. That could be features, it could be materials, it could be your technology stack, things like that. We'd like to know about it. So we're having a little survey here. We're doing some planning. So we want to get a little bit of feedback from the community. And so there's a few questions for you to answer here. And we're giving away prizes randomly to people who have taken the survey. And so we've got these 4 great prizes: a Commodore 64 Mini, which is a fun little game system / computer. It's got BASIC on it. You can connect to your TV. We got a waterproof Bluetooth speaker from JBL. Very nice. Very substantial. It's kind of smallish, but it's like really, really solid and got a lot of heft to it. Rocketbook notebook, which is on my wish list for this Advent. And Decrypto board game, which I kind of want to get, but I don't know if I have the people around this house here at the home office, the Columbus office, are going to be interested in a game like that. So this is something that might be more in line for a bunch of nerds to play this board game. So those are all fun prizes we're giving away. So please don't take this if you've not touched Couchbase before. We're really interested in feedback about Couchbase itself, the experience, the materials out there, your developer journey, your stack, things like that. But if you have played with Couchbase, even just a little bit, we want to know your opinions on it. So things we can do to make it better. We want to know about you and your team and your technology stack. So this is the last day to be eligible for prizes. We're probably going to leave the survey up if you want to fill it out and give feedback. But after today, after today we're going to pick some winners and send them prizes. So as I'm recording this right now live, you still have a chance. If you're watching this on YouTube, probably it's over or almost over. So October 31st, I don't know what time zone. We might give you a little bit of leeway there, but October 31st, get in there, bit.ly/Couchbase Survey. Please take that survey. Okay. Event sourcing, CQRS. So we're just kind of going to pick off exactly where we left off in the last session. I haven't done any work in the meantime. Sometimes I'll go and do some work on my own. I haven't done anything since that last stream, so we're kind of picking up where I left off. That's not completely true because I have been chatting a little bit with the eventing team here at Couchbase, because sort of the linchpin of my experiment here is, well, can I do a CQRS implementation using just Couchbase eventing? So I don't have to introduce any other queuing systems or any other sort of technologies. The idea being I have this front end and back end sort of ASP.NET plus REST APIs or JavaScript front end or whatever, and then I have Couchbase as the back end with an events bucket and an aggregates bucket and eventing to sort of build those aggregates as the event buckets events keep adding to the event bucket. So at this point, I'm not sure that we can do this with the way eventing is right now, and I'm not sure going forward if it's going to be possible, because I'm not sure that the features that we need to do that are something that are high priority or even feasible for eventing to do. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and forge through and finish out this experiment, and we're going to learn something along the way. Sometimes what you learn is, okay, this is not the way to do it. So that's totally fine. Yeah, also got my backlog of bot enhancements. So whenever I find time to enhance the bot, I'll add stuff to it. I'm not going to say anything more, but I am going to remove this item from the backlog. And let's just leave it at that. So if Calvin shows up today, you're going to see this in action. If Calvin shows up and chats today, you're going to see this in action. Okay, so back over here, CQRS example. This is what I was doing when we last left the stream. I was creating some very, very simple REST endpoints. That's what each of these methods are, REST endpoints, to basically trigger commands. And I'm running those commands through Mediator. And I normally would do validation here. We're going to skip the validation because at this point, like I said, I don't think we're going to be able to do exactly what I expected to do, at least in whole. So we're going to leave the validation for just for your own imagination. Validation is relatively straightforward to do. We just put some attributes on these classes would be one approach. So anyway, we've got this new profile request. So we'll go ahead and do something very similar. Oops, down here. And this might be a place where you might want to consider using AutoMapper or something like that, but we're just going to keep it relatively straightforward here. Create another request object. We're going to call this one social media request. This is the command that someone is adding social media information to their profile. So we'll add a constructor for that. I'm using ReSharper here to do a lot of the work for me, adding these bits of wiring code, plumbing code to it there. Why doesn't it like this? Oh, because this needs to inherit from iRequest. That's a mediator interface. Okay. So that should be happy now. Oh, this is an async. All right, and same thing down here. This should be async. It still doesn't seem to like that. Oh, because man, I am not. I got my coffee a little late today. I just finished my coffee, so my brain isn't all the way working right now. We're getting there. So V-Bucks. This is. I kind of decided to, instead of using actual money, I'm going to use Fortnite money in my application here. Just to demonstrate sort of some of the aggregation things that event sourcing should handle. Okay. All right, so we've got all the commands in place. So right now, if I hit this REST API, hit the create user endpoint and post all the correct data to this, except for the validation. Of course, we don't have any of that in place. Validation may be one of the things that is Turns out one of the things that we can't quite do with the eventing service in Couchbase just yet, at least not the kind of validation we need for event sourcing or CQRS. So anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, right now we're sending these requests to Mediator. Mediator doesn't know what to do with them though. We don't have anything to handle those requests yet. And further, we don't do a get users either. So let's just go ahead and put that in place. This is not going to be a command. This is going to be a query. So this will be something like, I don't know, we could say like int page number and then int page size, something like that. I don't know. There's a new get users request. And so we'll just put page number and page size in there. And again, we'd have to validate those probably. This is going to give us a response this time. So we need a response object as well. And we're going to return, okay, that response. So get users request. This will be another request here. Probably I'd want to separate this into a command or query subfolder, that sort of thing. But so I request user list. I don't know, something like that. I guess it could just be list of users. No, not list users, list of users. So then we need a user class as well, which might be more in line with, we could probably make that part of this. List of users, list of user. And then what I want this to return would be GUID again, and name. Kind of feel like I did this already. Oh yeah, user info. That's what I wanted. Why did I? I'm not sure why. So I put all these inside of the same file. These should probably split out to another file, but it's fine for now. User info. So yeah, I'd want the name of each person and how many V-Bucks they have, right? So this is kind of demonstrating that we're querying into the aggregate. We're getting the current V-Bucks balance. We're not having to go back and rerun all these V-Bucks transactions to get their current balance. That's the idea there. Constructor takes 2 arguments. So get request users, yes. Okay, so we'll need to create a constructor for that. And we're going to, what is this in for? I don't necessarily need that. Why is ReSharper creating that? Okay, that's fine. So the response should be a list of user info, which we then return to the endpoint. Good. So I'm just going to put these in a region just to hide them here. But these are going to be DTOs. I don't know. I guess we can call them DTOs or something like that. I don't know if that's correct to call them DTOs, but they're just plain old C# objects that we're going to use to pass information to requests and get information from requests. So I guess that's a DTO, data transfer object, right? Data transfer object? I think it's data transfer object. I'm not sure about that T. It's data something starts with a T object. I'm pretty sure it's transfer. Okay, so now what we need is we have these requests. We have Mediator that receives requests. We need to create some handlers, request handlers, to take those requests and actually do something with them. Let me just shut my phone off, put it on quiet here. Okay. So for instance, when we're creating a new user, we're creating a new profile request. And so we need a new profile request handler. Doesn't have to be called that, but it's going to be nice. And this will be I request handler of new profile request. So this is right now we're still using Mediator. You don't have to use Mediator to do CQRS, and you don't have to use CQRS to do event sourcing. I'm just we covered that in the last stream. I just wanted to reiterate that. And so anytime you implement this interface, you're going to get a handle method. It returns a task of units because this is a command, so it's not going to return anything. At least ours isn't. And so task of unit is basically Mediator's way of saying this is a void method. This is, again, a limitation of C#. We can't do a we can't return a void task, a void type. But we want this same framework, the same interface to handle both commands and queries. So this has been the solution. Have this this unit thing. Okay, so now we've got this request handler. And in our startup, just to review here, we did add Couchbase to this. Actually, I think I may have a small problem here because I'm running the chatbot right now locally, which I really need to get that onto Azure, maybe next week. I'm doing some Kubernetes stuff anyway. But right now, this chatbot is taking up port 8091. So if I want to run this locally, that's going to be a problem. So it looks like our chat is pretty quiet right now, so I'm going to go ahead and shut down the chatbot. So anything you say right now any commands you execute for right now will not actually do anything. And your messages will not be recorded into the chat. So now's your chance. If you want to throw out a chat message, it doesn't do anything, which is kind of a bummer because when Calvin shows up, he's not going to see the exciting new feature I built. Basically, I built just for him, but I'll spill for myself because it was fun. And I'm building this all up and watch that Calvin's like on vacation today or something, and he won't show up. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm going back to my microservice, and notice I've got these ports open for my chatbot. I don't need those ports to be open because those ports are still accessible inside of Docker. So there's no reason for me to expose those other than I want to be able to access Couchbase from outside of Docker, which for today's stream, I absolutely do not. So I just did that, and I'm rerunning that microservice off screen. And then the chatbot should be back up and running again. Which means it frees up a port for me to then spin up a Couchbase server for the CQRS thing that I'm working on. So right now, nothing's running in Docker. The TwitchBot is still going. It's got to do some rebuilding because I changed the port numbers. And eventually, this is going to go to Kubernetes. I won't have to worry about that ever again. It'll just be out there on Azure. Assuming I can afford it, it shouldn't be that bad. Out there on Azure, I won't have to run it locally again. It'll just automatically be running all the time. My chatbot will be running all the time. And I don't have to worry about it messing with anything locally. We'll get there. We'll get there. I just did some Kubernetes stuff today and yesterday with my good friend coworker Dennis Rosa, who is a whiz with Kubernetes and microservices and stuff, because I will be at KubeCon San Diego coming up here. This will be one of the last two events, I think one of the last two events I'm going to this year, KubeCon in San Diego, KubeCon North America. And of course, since we're sponsoring, it would be nice if we could actually demonstrate some stuff with Kubernetes for anybody that comes by the booth. And so I was up on that stuff last KubeCon back in Barcelona, but some stuff has changed since then. So I needed to get up on that, and I did. So thank you very much for that, Dennis. I'm now, the bot's up and running, so let me just go ahead and give it a try. Make sure. It is not working. 44309. Did it change ports on me? No. It is running though, right? Yep, there it is. It's running. Current project. Let's try it again. Maybe it's just napping. It's not the end of the world if this isn't working. I just kind of thought this would work fine. I don't see any errors or anything like that. if I do a rim shot? Let's try it one more time. And then if this doesn't work, we'll move on. We'll just have to proceed without the chatbot. This thing seems to be working. Okay, it worked there in the browser. Fine. Current project. Oh, okay. I don't know what happened, but now it's working. So good. So chatbot back up and running. And okay. So with that in mind, I've got another Docker image just for this, and I think I called it Docker DB650 Beta 2. And so we're going to run this. So as you can see right now, I've got a Couchbase server running here. I've got my Twitch bot running here in their own images. But none of except for the website, none of the ports are exposed. So I can also run another Couchbase image and expose that port, 8091, so that I can log into it. This is not the Couchbase server that the Twitch bot is using. So this has, like we showed yesterday, the aggregate, the event source buckets, and the eventing metadata buckets, which we'll get to. Okay. Okay, so this is connecting to Couchbase. So whenever I want to use a bucket in Couchbase, I simply just inject that. I can inject it here because Mediator, one of the things Mediator gives us, which is one of the reasons I like it a lot, is it'll give us a dependency injection into the actual request handlers. So we can just say iBucket provider, and we'll just set a bucket variable bucket provider.get bucket, and the bucket name that I want to use, this is where I'm going to put the events into, is called user events source. Now this is hard coding it like this is maybe not the best way to go, because we're going to have to do that for a lot of the request handlers, any of them that use Couchbase. So what we could do is we could create a named bucket provider, which would mean we wouldn't have to use this magic string anymore. But for our purposes, it's fine. We'll just get on with it here. Okay, so at this point, we've got a new profile request. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say bucket.insert. And we're going to do a new document. And we're going to give this a, well, there's a couple ways we could go about this, right? We're going to call this a new profile event class, which I haven't created yet. We can create it right here. And yes, and so we'll give it an ID, just of whatever, new GUID. Okay, and then the content itself needs to be a new profile event, and we're going to pass in the request to that. So again, we're doing some constructors here. Because what I want to store now is not just the raw data that new profile request is giving, which is actually just a wrapped version of new user. I don't want to just spit this data right into it. Oh, that will be part of it, right? So let's go ahead and put this in here. Right, so those will probably be, oh, in fact, this ID should, well, no. Yeah, this ID is not going to be related to the user ID. That's a separate thing, right? Right? I think that's correct, yes. So, anywho, new profile event. So there are some things that we want to store in every user, every event source event. So things like, at the very least, the timestamp, when this event what happened. And we may also want to store a description of the event and a type for the event, right? So, so what I want to do is I'm going to create this new profile event, but I want it to give it an abstract base class. So this would be like, I don't know, event source event, something like that. And this will be something we can reuse with the other events as well. public class. Is that the right order? Public abstract class. I can't. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'd have something like, we could probably wrap this in the constructor as well, just to enforce that it's in a good place, but a timestamp. All right, so protected constructor, something like that. So date time timestamp. Right, so because this then has to include base initialization of that. So this could be request dot, or this could just be date time dot now. Probably be good enough for that. Okay, what's the problem here? Cannot be combined. Oh, I don't know why I have that in there. Yes, so protected constructor, and we don't want to have, we just want to have a private constructor that will not be used. So unable to be used, right? So when you new this up, you have to go through this. So maybe timestamp's enough for now. No, I think also we'll just say event type. I'll just call that a string. Every event is going to have an event type. I think that makes sense. So we can have this, and then I could just go ahead and put a string in here like new profile. Okay, and then the rest of this is going to be data that this event needs. So let's take a second to think about this. All right, so if we're looking at an event in our database, this is going to be a new profile event. And so we could probably just say, so the event's going to have a timestamp, an ID of its own. All right, so probably this would be good enough. Probably put the ID right in there. It just doesn't, we don't have to assign it. It's just its own ID. So the event itself has an ID. Different than the ID of the new profile. But what I'm saying then is the event itself is going to have sort of this base level of data. Maybe it would help if I just sort of sketch this out a little bit. So this would be the event. It's going to have event type. This is going to be new profile. Okay, and then it's going to have a timestamp. This is going to be, whatever, 2019, blah, 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 something like that. It has its own ID. And then what might be good is to sort of encapsulate the actual data for the event itself inside of an object. So this is where the user ID would go. This is where the name would go. The location. And the language. Something like that. So when this piece of data actually goes into the event source bucket, when I execute the event, it's going to be able to, the eventing code is going to look at this and say, oh, it's a new profile, so I need to create a new object, a new aggregate, and keep the timestamp data, that's fine, and then use this data inside the aggregate to just start it off brand new. So I think that's what I want to do, which means, this makes it relatively simple. We'll just have a public, and it is what is it called? It's called a new user data. Like that. So we say data equals request dot info. And that's really it. So whenever I create a new user, it's going to get this info here through the request, which is just sort of wrapper for data, which throws it into a sub-object. The rest of the stuff is all part of the event base class. And I think that's probably all we need for this. Something wrong with handle. Okay, so I'm going to also make this asynchronous. No reason not to. And we'll use insert async, which is fine. And just await that. We really need to do. And we're going to return unit.value, which is, again, there's no void type in C#. Otherwise, this would be type void. We could just return that. But this is a construct that Mediator has created to substitute in the place of void, because this is a command. It's not returning any data. And Mediator does not have different interfaces for commands and queries. It just has requests. Okay, so this event source event, we probably should put into its own, its own file, because we're going to reuse that. Okay. All right, so we've got one handler down. We could probably go ahead and try it and see what happens. I don't see why not. So let's bring up Postman, because we're going to be making REST requests here. Hey, it's Coral. What would you say makes for good criteria in choosing to make functions asynchronous versus synchronous? I would say the main reason to make them asynchronous is because those functions are dealing with some sort of I/O. And if, I don't want to say any changes. If you are dealing with I/O, then sometimes I/O can be, you don't want your thread just sitting there waiting on I/O to finish. You want it to be able to do other work while it's waiting on I/O. So if you're dealing with I/O, I think asynchronous is a great place to use that. So when you're reading and writing from files, reading and writing from database connections, reading and writing from network connections, those things are all makes sense to be asynchronous. If you're not doing any of those things, it doesn't really matter because the code's going to execute relatively quickly either way. So synchronous is fine. But pretty much for my application, it's asynchronous all the way down. These are HTTP endpoints, so I want them to be asynchronous at the root level. So therefore, they can make asynchronous requests to Mediator, which can then turn around and make asynchronous requests to a database, HTTP, and so on. So that would be my criteria if it's dealing with I/O in any sort of significant way, which ours definitely is. Okay, so thanks for stopping by, Coral. By the way, Coral, just a random question here. If you could have, let's say, a short video clip play whenever you entered the channel, what would that video clip be? And could you give me a YouTube URL and like time codes for from 1 minute and 10 seconds to 1 minute and 25 seconds, something like that. Haruhi, how are you, Haruhi? Good to see you again. Thanks for coming back. We're doing some more CQRS stuff. Oh, dang, that's a tough one. Well, you don't have to answer right now, but if you think of something, you're one of my. So you've got the founder badge there, 4-month subscriber. So I would definitely like to reward you for that with your own special entrance video. You don't have to, of course, if you don't feel comfortable. But I think it's super fun. Everyone should have their own entrance music. Okay. Haruhi, I think I saw you in someone else's chat. Was it... I can't remember. Michael Jolly or something like that? I saw you hanging out somewhere else. Teacher melted your mind with HTML and CSS stuff, all within 4 days to start with JavaScript. HTML and CSS. CSS still melts my mind. It is something I've never been able to get any sort of handle on. And it's not for lack of trying. It seems so foreign to me. Like the whole CSS thing. I've gone to sessions where it's like CSS for developers. And I followed CSS tutorials, and I used to work with a guy who's an absolute CSS wizard. And I've interviewed people on my podcast talking about like FlexGrid, things like that, and it's just not clicking with me. It's just not clicking at all. HTML, though, I've been doing HTML for a long, long time. I'm probably not up to date on all the latest tags and recommendations, things like that, but I'm pretty comfortable with HTML. Relatively speaking. Okay, so we got the site up and running, and it's going towards this weather forecast, which I removed that, but I didn't remove the startup command to do it, which is fine. So we've got this address here, and we're going to hit it in Postman. And it's a post actually. So we're going to do a post with Postman, believe it or not. And we're going to go to, I think, create user. And inside the body, which I probably didn't do this correctly. This needs to be from body. Whoops. Oh my goodness. Looks like we got some resharper explosions there. No big deal. From body. Okay, that's more like it. And yeah, validation. I just put some basic validation here. So if user info dot name, if string dot is null or empty, we'll just put 1 in there just for the sake of it. We'll return bad request. Name is required. And by the way, yes, you saw me on another stream. Forgot his name. The dude who works on Stack Overflow articles. Oh yes, it was Corey. He's I mean, every once in a while he'll do like a Stack Overflow stream where he answers questions, but he's a developer advocate for Twilio. So CLW I think is his channel, but Corey is his name, and that's a guy I met years ago actually at an event in Orlando, if you can believe that. I think that's where I first met him. But yeah, he's I don't think we rated him. I just came to his channel one day and you were there, so it was very cool. Like Corey. Okay, validation. So I'll just say more validation. Okay, so this from body thing, I want to also add it here while I'm thinking about it. And I think there's a way you can do that so you don't have to repeat this everywhere, but I don't know. Again, we're not trying to get bogged down in details here. Okay. Weather forecast. Yep. So create user. So if I do this with an empty post, I should get an error message that I forgot to return the text. Oh, nope, that's not the right URL. It is user profile. Is that going to work? Okay, I may have forgotten something else. I may have forgotten to put a route on here. Let's just make this real easy. Create user. We'll take off this nonsense here. And we'll just give these all explicit routes. Add social. V-Bucks transaction. Okay, try her again. Haven't even got past the... Okay, this should be API / create user, and I should get an error message. Unsupported media type. What? Oh, because I didn't submit JSON. Non-empty request body is required, something like that. Okay, there we go. Name is required. So boom. All right, we got that. So now I can just take this new user. I need ID, name, location, language. ID, name, location, language. Okay, so we're going to just build this JSON by hand. You're probably... I could probably generate the GUID myself, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I might not want to do that, in fact. Language, okay, and US, location, Grove City, Ohio. Name, Matt Groves, and then we'll just get a GUID generator here to give us a GUID. Generate some GUIDs. Why did that take so long? Okay, back to Postman. Put it in here. Okay, so at this point, what I would expect to happen, I have no unit test for this, but this should be pretty simple. It's going to go through, it's going to pass my very basic validation. It's going to create this request. It's going to send the request off to Mediator. Mediator is going to say, oh yeah, I can handle that request. I've got this one right here. And it's going to then get a Couchbase bucket and handle it by inserting that into Couchbase. One other thing I wanted to check. I don't have this here, and I probably should, and I oftentimes forget this, is I need to have something when the application closes that we're going to close this Couchbase connection. Otherwise, it's just kind of a leak that's hanging out there. What is it? Shoot. I always forget this code. It is I host application lifetime. So this just says, hey, when this app is stopped, go ahead and clean up the Couchbase service as well. This is kind of the equivalent of closing your Entity Framework connection or whatever. Okay. All right, so I think we're good now. I'm going to run this again. Postman, send, and user has been created. Okay, and if I go over here, you see in user event source, bam, user has been created. There it is. And this is exactly what I wanted, right? So it's, well, this ID is not exactly what I wanted. That's weird. But yeah, timestamp's in there, event type's in there, there's a new profile, and this is the actual data that this event is updating. So why is there an ID in my event source event? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't actually need that there, do I? I want to use that in where, yeah, this is right here. Yeah, this is going to give me a random GUID. That's fine. Okay, so back over here, let's just delete this and try it again. Run this app. Postman, send, user's been created, and there it is. There's user. So ignoring this data, this is itself the actual event. And the event contains, okay, this is when my event was, timestamp, this is the type of event I am. We need the information. And then here's the actual payload of the data. That's all we need to create a new aggregate, is that information right there. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, what's the next thing we should do? We can either keep going, creating more CQRS examples, or I can just switch over to eventing. I think I'm going to switch over to eventing. So we're going to eventing here. We're going to call this event source, metadata bucket right there. Function name is going to be, I don't know, event sourcing. And this parses new documents in user event source and updates the aggregates, creates, updates, deletes the aggregates in the aggregate bucket. Aggregates / views, some people call them views. All right, and so we have just one, let's see. We don't need the one binding here. And this binding is going to be a bucket, and we're going to call this the, we'll just call it target bucket. That's going to be the user aggregate. Let's call it user aggregate bucket. And read only? No, read and write. Okay. So this is creating a function inside a Couchbase server, and this function will execute when new data is updated inside of the bucket that we're watching. And the bucket that we're watching is currently user event source. So back over here, we're into JavaScript. And so now we can actually look at that document and do stuff with it. So here's an example of the document. Just switch screens here a little bit. Move this over here. So we can say if doc.eventType equals new profile, then we're going to go ahead and create a new profile. So what does that mean? It means, what did I call? Let's just save this back. What did I call it? I called it target. Target is the alias. Alias for aggregate. aggregate bucket. Okay. So we can create a target, and we can say doc.data.userid equals, that's the new document, all right? And we'll just put this in here. Well, let's just start with this, doc.data. That's it. So if a new document comes in that's this type, go ahead and create a brand new document. So I think that'll work. Very simple. Now we'll go ahead and deploy it, and we're going to run it on everything. So this is another one of the issues where I don't think this is quite going to give us what we want, CQRS. Because my initial thought was we have these two feed boundary options. We can start running this event on anything that happens from this point on, or we can run it on every single document in the bucket. And so my thought was, since this is event sourcing, I might want to rebuild all the data. So everything would make sense. If I, for instance, wiped out the entire aggregates bucket and want to start over, then I would just do feed boundary everything. However, my concern is that it's not necessarily going to run these events in the same order. And so how do I guarantee the same order? And right now, I don't think there's a way to do that in Couchbase eventing functions. So that's why I think that's another one of the reasons I think this kind of breaks down, at least right now, the current state of eventing. In the future, who knows? But let's just go ahead and try this. We'll deploy it here. This takes a second to deploy, actually, for the first time. But if you look at buckets, it's actually going to go in here to the metadata bucket, and it's going to eventually create 1,024 items here, which corresponds to each of the V buckets, or the shards, inside of Couchbase. Yep, 1,024. So that's the metadata about it. Metadata is something you generally want to leave alone. That's something that Couchbase eventing is sort of using behind the scenes to handle this kind of stuff. So when our function here turns green, that means it's deployed and starts running. And when that happens, I should expect a aggregate item to show up here in user aggregate. So this is 1 right now. It should parse that and then go to 1. Looks like it did. So now we have one document here. Undefined is the ID, so that's a problem. But everything else looks like it's in there. I want to go back and double check something here. Yeah, this is just ID, and I was assuming user ID for some reason. So that's a problem with the eventing. So we're going to go ahead and delete that one because that's incorrect. Eventing and edit JavaScript. Yeah, so this should just be ID. Oh, yeah, here's the thing with eventing is you have to undeploy, then you can edit, make the change, then I can save. But here's the nice thing is that I can go ahead and deploy this and, no, not delete. Where's my deploy? I don't know what happened there. Deploy, and then I can just run it again on everything again. So not just from now on, but everything. So we'll deploy that. Again, it'll take some time for that to run, but I should expect an aggregate to show up now with the correct key on it. I'm going to finish that. So we're going to give that a second to run. In the meantime, I'm going to go back here and make that read only. It always bothers me. But we can go ahead and create another. We can keep going down this road and we'll create the add social, which this is going to result in a new event, but it's going to modify the existing aggregate. So we're going to create a social media request handler. Okay, this is going to be iRequest. And no, I'm wrong. Wrong. Social media request. This should be iRequest handler of social media request. That's right. Okay. Let those, and I will again do the CTOR thing here and get iBucket provider. Same thing as before. Up here. Okay. And it'll be similar to this. Similar enough, in fact, that I may want to do some refactoring at some point. But we're going to do a new, not new profile event, but social media update event. And it's going to take in request.socialmediainfo. So once again, I'm going to create a public class social media event. This is going to inherit from that same base class. What doesn't it like about this? Oh, because it's not asynchronous yet. Okay, and so we're going to need that, and yeah, and so this is going to be social media update. Okay, well, let's just go check on this, see if something's happened. It has happened, so I've got this aggregate. I think that's the correct key. We'll double check. This ID doesn't need to be here. That's going to require a little bit extra work for us to get rid of that, so we'll leave it there for now. But 59E88, name, macros, location, language, good. And if I go back over to the event source, we'll see that yes, 59EE, that is what the ID is that's in there. So this is ID that was used to create the aggregate itself. And so going forward, if I use that same ID, my events will roll up to the same aggregate. Okay, so social media update event. All right. So once again, this is just going to be probably a simple matter. Social media. It just contains social media type and handle and the user that it corresponds to. Oh, what are we doing here? Okay. So I think I want this to be a public GUID ID, no, user ID. So user ID equals, and this should just be social media info. Social media info dot user ID. And the actual data, well, again, I don't think I really need to mess with that. This data can just be social media info. And we'll just create that as a property. Doesn't have to have a setter. Throw that up here. And the date time stuff is kind of handling itself. So this is kind of getting a little repetitive, so I'd be a little nervous about this and start to think about, do I need to refactor this? At the same time, I think we're a little too early to think about worrying about repetition. And also, like I said, I think a lot of this is going to be throwaway anyway after we finish this experiment, so I'm not super worried about this. But okay, so this should work. This is going to create a new social media event, which has the current timestamp, a different type, but the same sort of data in it. And so if we look at that event, it's going to look like this, right? And it's going to have, let me just flip this over here. So this is the new profile. This is the social media. It's got its own GUID. It's going to look similar to this. Event type is going to be, what do I call it? Social media update. Timestamp is blah, blah, blah. The data itself is going to be user ID, social media type. So that's going to be something like, I don't know, Twitter. And handle, something like Elm Groves. So that's what I expect to come in. So let's go back over to our eventing function. And we're going to undeploy this. Edit that JavaScript. Okay, so now we're going to do a different one. If doc.eventType equals social media update. We're going to do something different. We're going to say, we're going to have the same aggregate that we're messing with. Although this is user ID this time. Okay, and let's say if it has a defined social media, let's just say social media. If it's not defined, then we're going to say target. Let's just make this a shortcut. ID equals doc.data.user_ID. So let's type that over and over again. Doc ID, and we're going to say ID dot social media equals an empty array. Will that work? I think that'll work. Okay, and at this point, now we probably want to do some checking. Let's say if target ID dot social media, one of the items in that array. This is where my JavaScript's getting weak, because let's just do it this way. This will be easier. So if target ID dot social media has a key in it that is doc.data.social media type. Let's see if it's not one. So social media dot Twitter. If that doesn't exist, then let's add it. Target ID dot social media. I'm wondering if this is even necessary. If I can just do this. Just overwrite it and say that equals to doc.data.handle. Probably going to be lowercase here. Something like that. Is that going to work? I don't know. We'll see. I think you get the idea, though, is that I'm trying to update that aggregate with some new information. So I'm going to deploy this now, but I'm going to do from now on the deploy function. We're not going to reprocess that aggregate. What language is this? The language I'm writing these events in is JavaScript. It's plain old JavaScript. That's the language that the only language Couchbase supports right now for writing events is JavaScript. Did I hit deploy? I hit deploy. I guess I didn't. Deploy. Yeah, I thought I did this. Deploy from now. Go. Syntax error. Oh boy. What did I do? What's my syntax error? TBD Gamer. What's going on? TBD Gamer. Let me ask you the same question I asked Coral, since you're around a lot. If you could have like a short video play when you first arrived in the chat, do you think you could decide whether it would be your entrance theme, so to speak? And if so, do you think you could send me a YouTube link with like time codes, like starting at 1 minute 10, going to 1 minute 21, something like that? Do you think you could do that? It doesn't like this right here. I've got an extra parenthesis. Okay, deploy from now. Okay, good. So that's going. So what I expect when that's done is not actually going to do anything because there's still only one event in there. It's not going to reprocess it because I said from now. But what I do want it to do is I'm going to post to this endpoint with a social media update. And so what I would want to post is basically this, right? Social media. A YouTube video of my content? It could be of your content, but any content, really. Basically, if you would show up in my chat room, here on Matthew D. Groves, a video would play on the screen, let's just say, hypothetically, that sort of gets people hyped because, hey, TBD Gamer's here. And here's TBD Gamer's entrance video. Yeah, I think of it like in wrestling. They play little intro videos. People arrive in the ring. Yes, something like that. Something relatively short. maybe 10 to 15 seconds at the most. I was hoping Calvin would show up here to sort of show this off, but he hasn't shown up yet. Okay. So is that function? Okay, it is going. And so far, it's just 1 and 1, which is what I expect. We'll run the old application here. You know, actually, let me introduce some validation into this as well. Encoding. Hello, encoding. How are you? How is it going? If it is not the case. Oh, wait, if string from Chile again. Yeah, thank you. Didn't you come over in the C# Fritz raid? I think something like that. I remember seeing you in that. Handle. Okay, we'll return bad request. Handle is required. How are things in Chile today? Things are a little chilly here in Ohio today. Okay, a little rainy actually. All right, so we've got our REST service running. We'll get a new endpoint. And that's going to be another post. And the endpoint, I called it add social. And yeah, so send this. It should be unsupported media type because I want this to be a raw JSON. Send this, and it should give us handle is required. Okay, so I'm going to post this in here, and the GUID should be the same one as I posted over here. So this should match up because I'm adding this information to this existing user. Did you know about the mess we're having these days in Chile? I think I saw some reports about, I think in the right place. Forgive me if I'm not. Some protests and some general unrest in Chile. I apologize, I didn't read too much detail about it. I did see that. Social revolution, a lot of protesters in the streets. Yes, I did hear this. I don't know much more about it than that. And one of the rules of this channel, in fact, is no politics. So you're welcome to talk about it. Absolutely welcome to talk about it. But let's try to stay away from getting into arguments. I don't know any of the specifics about Chile politics. But I like to keep politics out of the stream. So anything else around the revolutions, please. Go right ahead. Matt, you need something to test the video thingy? So I've already tested it, Haruhi. It is working as far as I know, but it's only set up for certain people. One of them is myself. I'm not going to entrance video myself, and one of them is Calvin, because he's sort of the original catalyst for this. So, all right, let's try this. Let's see what happens. User's been created. That's what? Oh, it's the same exact message. Okay. Social media info has been added. Yeah, so V-Bucks have been transacted. Okay, so let's just see what the aftermath is of my terrible coding in here. Okay, so I've got the new event. This looks right. Corresponds to the same user. I'm adding Twitter at mgroves. Okay, so let's go back to buckets and let's see if it actually worked. Darn it, it didn't work. Okay. All right, so at this point, I'd probably have to go through here and cannot read property social media. So, okay, I vaguely remember something about this doesn't work. Like, this is not a way to detect if that field exists on the document or not. I think what I have to do, yes, I think I remember this now. So we'll try this once, but I think kind of getting the idea here. I don't want to invest too much time in this because, again, I think this is a little bit of a dead end. So Original doc. Okay, so if original doc does not have social media, then set social media on it. Okay. Right, so I have to read the whole doc back. I can't just, because this is kind of like a little bit of a promise, sort of asynchronous thing here. So I can't just immediately read the property on that. I've got to get it and then bring it back. So I think that's right. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the whole thing back, which is, again, kind of one of the benefits, but I don't think it's going to work. Because there's no way I can guarantee the order of which one is applied. So let's go through here and delete this social media one. And we'll try it again. Yeah, so just to recap, I thought this eventing might be a quick and easy way to add event sourcing without introducing additional tools. Yeah, exactly. The event should be idempotent. I think that's not going to be the case. Not because they wouldn't be idempotent. I think it would probably work fine if we're starting over from scratch. But the problem is I can't guarantee through Couchbase eventing which order these events are going to actually run. I can't guarantee the ordering, and so therefore, if it tries to update social media before it creates the actual user, it's not going to work. So I think that's my experiment here is kind of a failed one. Is what I'm getting at. Okay, so there we go. So let's go ahead and run this again. You know, it happens. It's not a big deal. Social media's been added. Okay, so we should have 2 documents in here now. Social media. Can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Yeah, I agree. And we're still kind of showing off the eventing stuff. Still not working. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this because I'm pretty sure this is my own lousy JavaScript / eventing coding here. Original doc, social media. So I'm just trying to test if that's falsy and then create it and then add a property to it. I'm probably doing that wrong because the JavaScript here, I mean, it is regular JavaScript, but some of the stuff like this alias here is not something it's not like a plain old JavaScript object. So I'm sure I'm doing some things wrong. If you choose an intro video, it would be a 33 second. And how long would that video play? TBD gamer, just by the way. Let's just see what it is. That's perfect. A-team, I love it. Okay. I'll make a note of that. 4 to 5 seconds is good. I think that's really good. I'm going to add that one in there to my notes to be added. Just I've been kind of dancing around this, but it's pretty obvious at this point. I've added this for Calvin. It does the whole cheers norm thing, which is what originally I wanted to do. So when Calvin joins the chat, it'll play a little norm for him. I could show you mine here, since it looks like Calvin's not going to show up and experiment's failing. So let's just. Oh no, I can't do it. I can't do it because I have to go in and delete a document. But I can't get to that database because I'm not port forwarding anymore. So yeah. Get Calvin in here and demonstrate it. I'm sure he's busy. Anywho, so I think the experiment is done for now. I can't get this to work, which is unfortunate. Maybe I could step through it, which would be one thing I could do. I can show the debugger. Although, yeah, I think I can show the debugger. You should add an announce command to manually trigger them. Well, what's the fun in that? Okay. All right. So I really just want to focus on just the social media. Wait. Yeah, just the social media. So let's delete this other one. This way I can use the debugger. think this will work. I think I've got all the correct ports forwarded. I remember how to debug this. Hit the debug button. Do I have to deploy it first? And then hit debug. I think that's how it works. Okay, which in this case, we got to drop down and do a little bit of manual work here to do the debugging, which is fine. This is the event, right? Yeah, I'll delete that. Eventing. Just waiting for this one to deploy. I'm going to need a separate tab here. No, I can just hit it with Postman. That'll be fine. Okay, so add the JavaScript. Wait, debugger must be enabled. Yes, enable debugger. Okay, there we go. Forgot about that. That's a relatively new change in these in 6.5. Okay. Okay, fine. Now what I want is I'm going to hit the debug button, and it's going to wait for a mutation before it gives me a URL. So let's go ahead and give it one. We'll send this off. So I can copy this URL, post it into Chrome, and we do the debugging here in Chrome. Except it doesn't seem to want to work. Oh, yes. This is a port forwarding issue, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so that's going to be a fail too, because I'm running Couchbase inside Docker, and I need a certain number of ports to be open for debugging to work, and I haven't done that. So this is just fails all around here. But I think the experiment itself is successful if the result is basically no, you can't do this, right? Which, if we're talking real science, then that's a lot of experiments that hypothesis is proven wrong. My hypothesis was I could use eventing to implement, just eventing to implement a event sourcing system without having to involve any additional logic, between these two, any additional services or systems between these two pieces of data. Just eventing would be good enough. I think that's not the case. So if you're looking at CQRS, you're probably still going to need a separate service to parse these events and go through some logic with them and give them an order, a version, a number, things like that, a sequence number, and then put them in an aggregates bucket, and to do some additional checks on that so that they're in the right order. TBD Gamer says, I have to do some more reading up on DDD, domain-driven design, and ES. ES is what? Want to do a lot more learning. ES. DDD and ES. Event sourcing. Yes, the thing I'm staring right at. Yes, event sourcing. Yes, DDD and event sourcing. So if you look at the current project, this is kind of the, did the bot stop working? Again? What happened? Null reference exception. So it looks like I've got some work to do on my bot as well, because it's just crashed. For some of that new code that I've added, there's a null reference exception in there. Oh boy. Some days there are good streams, some days there are bad streams. This isn't a really good one. Except I just want to reiterate, CQRS with just Couchbase eventing, probably not going to fly. So you're going to need to introduce some other code to handle those events, specifically the rebuilding based on those events, to make sure you're getting them in the right order and you're processing them correctly. You're not processing them multiple times, that sort of thing. So I'm not going to quite say it's impossible. Maybe there's some clever tricks in eventing. We can get around that, but as I'm seeing it right now, it's not working as simple as I thought it was going to work. So that's the end of the story with that, with CQRS. So if I want to explore this further, we're probably going to have to introduce some sort of system like Kafka or a service bus or something like that to really do this correctly. It might be able to do it all with Mediator. I'm not sure. Some sort of pub sub system. We'll have to do some more reading up on that as well, TBD Gamer. So anything you discover that might be a good resource, feel free to share it with us. But yeah, that's unfortunate. So I'll close down the CQRS example. And got a little bit of time left today. So we can just sort of open it up for questions. If anyone's hanging out and has been, as I said, there's no such thing as a stupid question in this channel. So if you've been sitting there waiting for your chance to ask a question, now would be a great time to do it. And there are no stupid questions in here. So ask away. So what do you understand as CQRS? Yeah. So what I understand as CQRS is basically the idea that you separate your commands and queries. That's really just in the name, right? So your command only mutates data. Your queries only read data. And you separate them so that they're not tangled with each other. So you don't have you're not trying to reuse anything between these. You could use different access methods, different libraries, different databases, different logic. With commands, you probably need a lot of validation. With queries, you don't necessarily need as much validation. But you might need a more rich system of parameters, for instance, for a query. And so the command could mutate database A, and queries could be querying from database B. And some other process, like event sourcing, would be updating database B, the aggregates in this case. So you're querying just the aggregates, but your commands all go to the events bucket. And then some other process, not eventing, not Couchbase eventing, but some process would update aggregates to make them eventually consistent with the events that are going into the database. So I'm kind of answered more than the question there, because now we're dipping into event sourcing. CQRS and event sourcing are not something that always have to exist together. You can do one without the other, for instance, but they often go together for those reasons, because your events bucket or your events data is going to be separate from your aggregates data or your rolled up views of aggregate roots. That's my understanding of CQRS. I'm going to, we're hanging out here. I got another maybe half an hour or so of time we could spend, but I'm going to take a look at this chatbot and the problems I introduced into it. The null reference exception is no bueno. Where was I? Chatbot. I'm going to... Ah! You didn't see that? Shoot. Nobody saw that, right? Okay, yeah, I wanted to bring back these port numbers. So maybe we'll demonstrate the entrance theme thing. No, sir, I didn't see you playing with the dolls again. That is a Spaceballs reference. Just watched it recently, although it was on YouTube TV, so it was the heavily censored version. It took a couple of the best jokes out. What in the world? What's the problem here? They took out the comb the desert joke, basically. I mean, they left the comb the desert scene in there. And they took out the when the whole bridge crew, let's say, is related. They took out like the main punchline of that, so it wasn't funny. Those are the two things I noticed they took out. There might have been some other small things, but yeah, censored version. It might have been AMC. I don't know. I set the DVR on YouTube TV, and it just picked whatever it was playing. But I was just watching with my wife, and she had never seen my wife, and she had never seen it before. So she was a little confused about what was going on. But she thought the princess was pretty funny. They didn't censor that part out, the Druish princess joke. Switchbot. They didn't censor out the Schwartz battle either. So I don't know. I don't know how they choose what to censor. I have no idea. But anyway, yeah, Spaceballs. Did you ever see the Spaceballs cartoon? Spaceballs the cartoon, or whatever it's called? I watched a few episodes. I did not think it was that good. Unfortunately. It got like one season of like 8 episodes, something like that. I think Mel Brooks actually did some of the voices in it, but I don't think they had any of the other original cast. Could be wrong about that. Yeah, love Spaceballs. But back to the question, did you actually see what was on the screen? I think I got it off pretty quickly. It was sensitive information. Not a big deal. People are trolling my videos looking for API codes. No, it wasn't dolls. It wasn't dolls. TBD Gamer, he's referring to a scene in Spaceballs. Maybe I can find it on YouTube. Maybe this is your new entrance music. Here, let's get on incognito YouTube. I'm currently disappointed that few folks in the office here are familiar with my Crowley costume from Good Omens. I've never seen Good Omens. I've seen tons of commercials for it. Let's see. Dark Helmet plays with dolls. Here it is.
The jobs of tomorrow
here's an ad.
will involve technology.
Yeah, I'm not seeing Good Omens. I've seen some of the trailer, like the little commercials for it when I watch Amazon Prime stuff on Amazon Prime, and it looked pretty funny, but I never really checked it out. All right, we'll skip ahead to the punchline here.
Oh, your helmet is so big.
Our helmet, what? You need it on the bridge, sir.
Knock on my door. Knock next time.
Yes, sir.
Did you see anything?
No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
Good.
Maybe that's your entrance there, Coral. All right, see chatbot. All right. Chatbot. Administrator, password. Whoa, all kinds of problems here. Okay. So if you want to see how this works, Matthew T. Groves arrived recently. How I do this, because the Twitch API doesn't really provide a really good, like, user just started chatting, user just entered chat room sort of command. What I do is I track when a user shows up for the first time in a while in the chat room. I save a document, and this document will use Couchbase's TTL to automatically expire after a certain period of time. I set it to 12 hours. I think one entrance every 12 hours is enough. And so if this document does not exist and I chat in the chat room, it will play an entrance video. So I'll show you right here. I just wrote test. Nothing is happening. I'll delete this, and then I'll hit test, and the video should come up. But it is not. Why is that? Did it actually, was there a crash? No crash. Did it create the document? No. Nothing's going right for me today. My goodness. So here is the user arrived handler, also using CQRS pattern here. The user has arrived. We're going to check to see if they arrived, which basically just says, does that document exist? If they have arrived, then just return, do nothing. If they've arrived recently, do nothing. Otherwise, create that document and then check their profile to see that I have fanfare defined for them. And if they do have fanfare, then tell SignalR, fanfare. Let me just make sure I have fanfare set in this document. Should be fanfare true, yep. Now what I want to do eventually is add more detail about the fanfare here. So this would be the YouTube clip and message and things like that. Is it arrived recently? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Arrived recently, yeah. Oh boy. Is this working? Is it anything in the bot working? Did I actually started the bot? What? 44309. 44309. Man, oh man. I'm just not having good luck today with computers. This is one of those days where it's getting to the point where I want to throw my computer in a lake. How about now, bot? Are you working? Okay. And it should have triggered me chatting as well. Maybe not. I don't know. There I am. 1902. It didn't actually trigger the video event though. Means I probably have some logic wrong here. User has arrived recently. Check if user has arrived. It exists. I can just step through this. The problem with his approach, it's not a big deal because I don't have, thousands of people in my chat. But basically it means that every time someone types a message into the chat, it's checking to see, is this their first time in a while? And that's kind of annoying. But, I couldn't think of a better way to do it. So there we go. Am I in the database? I am, so let me delete that. Okay. I've not arrived recently, okay. So it's going to create a user. Fine, get the profile. And it says, has fanfare, yes. So it should send the fanfare. And it does not appear to be doing that. Well, it was working yesterday. And it's not working today. I'm sure I've done something wrong with SignalR. It's just, I'm going to write this one off, y'all. We're going to close it up here today. Thank you for hanging out, being patient with me as I do a lot of failing. Let's go see if we can find someone else who isn't failing as much. See who's available. A lot of the team is on here today, so we can raid someone else. Who haven't we raided in a while? I've never raided Raimu, I don't think. Doing some Lua script. That's pretty cool. We've also got the Michael Jolly, who's probably not failing. So why don't we raid the Michael Jolly just for funsies. Set up that raid. Thank you everybody for joining me today. I appreciate it. Sorry things didn't go all that great. We did learn something about CQRS a little bit. Yeah, TBD Gamer, some days don't go the way you want. It's all good. Thank you for streaming. See you again soon. Thank you for hanging out. And I'll see you over in Michael Jolly's. Again, if you're a sub, make sure to hit that bada bing, bada boom emote and be nice to Michael Jolly. We'll see you next week, next Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. time. So until then, everyone have a good day.
It's a new goal that got created. So that's not really